Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to a warm episode of QuickBooks Labs, your fortnightly vlogcast, I think we call it now, that relates to everything QuickBooks related and everything to do with anything to do with bookkeeping. I am one of your hosts, Aaron Patrick. I am a chartered accountant, certified UK trader, and also that QuickBooks chap on the internet. And joining me, as always, is my co-host, Ash. How's it going, Ash?
Fantastic. Thanks, Aaron. Yeah, I'm Ash Beatson, bookkeeper, accountant, jack of all trades, master of none. I'll leave it at there. So, Aaron, how does all this work then today?
Great question there, Ash. So, first of all, we are live to the world at our regular time of 4 p.m. UK time, usually every other Tuesday, although, spoiler alert, we might be changing times for next week. 10 a.m. US Central Time if you're from anywhere else. So if you're listening back to this at a late time, then why not think about joining us live? When you do join us live, you have the extra special option of being able to ask us any questions. So we will answer questions towards the end of the show itself. And also, furthermore, if you do like this content, then we're also on podcast services around the globe. So why not give us a little like and a little follow on them as well? Ash, what's the agenda for today's show?
So, Aaron, within today's show, we'll go and have a look at some new or some possible additional updates in QuickBooks Online, how that's all listed in accounting web. So you want to take us through that. We've also got some updates within the accountant portal for training. The new core self-study videos have been updated. We'll have a quick look at those. We've got our tip of the week. I'll just show us how we can use bundles in there, and then if any questions come through from anybody, we'll do our best to get them answered.
Brilliant. So what I want to go through is some breaking news. Well, I say breaking news. It was actually what was it? When was Get Connected? Was it 2 weeks ago, wasn't it? Yeah, 2 weeks ago on Thursday. So for anyone who's not aware, let me just bring it up on screen so we can see it. We had QuickBooks Get Connected 2020. And the idea of Get Connected 2020 was it was all about, hopefully it's this one, hopefully this has worked. It's not the right screen. Give me 2 seconds. Oh, there it is, perfect. So Get Connected 2020. The idea of Get Connected is normally what happens on Get Connected is we go around the UK, or QuickBooks go around the UK, and they do these smaller little presentations that are regional. And what normally would happen is then there's the larger Connected, QuickBooks Connected, which happens around February time. And what tends to happen is on those two different events, so those two different types, you'll normally get some form of product announcement or some news about where the product's going, or at least explain some of the new features in a little bit more detail. What we had at this one, though, due to COVID and everything that came with it, is we had a very different event to what we're used to, and it was a completely virtual event. It started off with one of our friends, Rochelle. She was going through the banking section. Pretty sure all this stuff is available on demand. So if you are looking, we'll make sure we put some links and everything else. But it started with Rochelle going through the new banking screen and how that's done. There was a whole section on QuickBooks Ask the Expert, and there was actually a time for you to do some expert. Myself, I had a part to play as well. So I was talking about how month-end review and how that worked. And there was some breakdown of the new payroll functionality. And then they talked about the new cash flow and the new self-employed section as well. So it was a really good event, and there was some excellent bits that came through. Just to give you a rundown of what was said, though, there was a big focus on the performance center. So we've talked about that at quite length on the show before, but basically they use that as a place to really showcase how the performance center was and what was going on there. And then they brought a big section about filter for employees, which I thought was a bit of an odd one to spend so much time on. Again, we've mentioned this on the show, but we've kind of mentioned it in passing as one of those features that very useful, but I'm not sure it really demanded massive amount of time being spent, but they spent quite a lot of time explaining how that can be quite useful. So for anyone who can remember, that's all about the fact that we get the opportunity to put a list of clients on there, and then you get to say who's actually responsible for each one. They talked about that sales overview tab, which we've never really spoke about on the show in too much detail, but we've explained that it's there. And really what it's designed to do is a bit of a stop shop, a one-stop shop for you to have an opportunity to go in and basically get yourself prepared for selling on QuickBooks. Make sure that you've got things like Go Cardless connected, PayPal connected, and also the introduction of iZettle. So they were quite nice innovations there. And again, they went through the other ones, like I went through the month-end review, and there was the cash flow as well. But then at the end of the stream, or the end of the day, should I say, they started talking about some innovations and future updates. And this is where we want to bring your attention to, because even things that me and Ash were unaware of that were coming our way. So basically, there is the opportunity that we're talking about. Jonathan Valentine revealed that although in early stages, QuickBooks is currently testing a prepayment and payment function on accounts. We'll talk about what that means in a second. And then following from the income tax estimate, which we talked about in the last one, there's plans to offer full income tax application module. So we knew that was coming, but it's just nice to have confirmation that it's definitely being worked on. And the idea then is that's going to be fully Making Tax Digital compliant. And then there is also plans to include a corporation tax element to as well, which definitely was a bit of a blindsider for us, but it does make sense again with Making Tax Digital. And then a fixed asset register included as well. They're also talking about bringing in working papers, which is a really great thing to see. We've kind of seen that already from Xero, so it'd be nice to see how QuickBooks implement it as well. And that's it. So they're the ones that are bringing in. And then the final bit was that they're talking about integrating with more payment partners. So Square and Stripe are the two that they're looking to be explored, and that's only good news going forward. So Ash, with that news there, let's start with the first one then. So let's start with the fact that this prepayment option, everything else. What do you think that could actually entail?
Well, I'm not actually sure, Aaron. I don't know whether that's going to be prepayments as we see them as accountants, paying for things in advance, or whether that actually means prepaying an invoice. So it'll be interesting to see exactly what that means. My other one, though, I didn't notice that, and I don't know how I didn't notice that fixed asset register. That is a little bit of a concern to me. So I don't know whether that actually means purely with regards to the corporation tax, or whether that is an inbuilt module within QuickBooks itself. So I will be looking at that with some interest as an app provider for fixed assets. So that is comes a little bit of a blow, but then we'll see. We've already got stock within QuickBooks, and we know that quite a lot of people use additional stock apps.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, just covering on that prepayments and payment functions on accounts, my gut feeling is all about trying to make it as simple as possible, isn't it? So I think it is down to that whole, how do we make it so from an income point of view, when we're raising invoices, how do we make payments and account more user-friendly? Because at the moment, it is kind of one of those where us as trainers, we're constantly having to explain that process and show that process in more detail. So I can kind of see where the way of making that more user-friendly would be beneficial to everyone. And I think that's what it's related to. That's the feel I get anyway, but I could be completely wrong there. But we'll wait and see what the implementation of that's going to be. But yeah, that fixed asset register, and I think we spoke about this privately, haven't we? I think it's one of those where Xero have a fixed asset register, and I, as an accountant and owner of accounting practice, refuse to use the fixed asset register on Xero, because sometimes when you have those, as nice as it is to have those kind of embedded options within your software, sometimes you need to have ways of which to have it more kind of focus rich and feature rich that NetTracker brings. So I think there'll be room for both, won't there? I think that's kind of where hopefully that's going to go for. And
from my point of view, Aaron, I certainly hope it falls a little bit short on people's expectations. I shouldn't perhaps say that, but I'm going to have to. So,
well, we see now the cash flow forecast was. So if it's anything like that, you'll be absolutely fine, won't you? So
yeah.
I don't see cash flow frogs losing sleep at the moment. Can you?
No, yeah, fingers crossed.
Brilliant. Yeah. So, and then with the other one, corporation tax fund. Yeah, obviously it makes sense, and I expected it to come, but yeah, it was just. I never thought they would build it kind of in product. I expected it would be some sort of other solution somehow that kind of goes into place, because if you're going to go look down a corporation tax model, then surely you've got to have a way of preparing the accounts as well. So it's going to be an interesting kind of future for it, isn't it? I mean, they've not said how long that's going to be, but I assume looking 12 to 24 months, I'd assume.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I did, and I won't sort of mention sort of any names here, or any software names, but this time last year, in fact, they were sort of working with a provider for sort of a corporation tax software, sort of a direct link in there. And now that actually did have a scope for tracking fixed assets for corporation tax. So maybe I'm crossing my fingers it's for those purposes.
Yeah.
So it's adding the fixed assets on your corporation tax return, which you do, which we know really is a separate issue sometimes between financial accounting and tax accounting. So I'm just going to hope that's what it is.
No, I think you've got it spot on. The fact they mentioned it in the same breath, didn't they, about fixed asset and about corporation tax? I think that's exactly why they're bringing it in, because how are you going to give an estimate to your corporation tax if you haven't got your capital allowances, right? So fingers crossed that's what it's related to. One thing for everyone to know as well is tomorrow is QuickBooks Connect USA. So effectively what they do is just like they do in February over here in QuickBooks Connect USA, then they'll just announce new product offerings for the US market. But what we tend to find, as an example, this time last year, or maybe even the year before, is when they announced the month-end review. So normally what you tend to find is they'll bring that in as well. So, you know, fingers crossed that we'll see some new elements and new features, and maybe some of these things they've just talked about will get showcased tomorrow. So keep an eye on the channel, and we'll obviously this time next week or 2 weeks time to say, we'll definitely give you any updates if there's anything else to talk about. Brilliant. Cool. Ash, what were you going to bring into the
so what I thought we just very quickly touch upon, and this really is for our accountant friends. So I know that we have different we have sort of a different audience. We have the small business owners and the accountants. But if I can share my screen, let me just make sure I'm into the correct screen. So if you are an accountant and you want to learn more about QuickBooks, you've got the option of starting off with course certification. And we used to do that through classroom training. Obviously, I've been put on hold since March, and they can join us for webinars. So if you're an accountant, the first place you arrive is your accountant dashboard. And if you do come into this pro advisor area, where you have training and benefits, I'll just take us into training. It's from within here. If you're not yet course certified, you will be able to see what webinars are available, what courses are available for you. And there's different ways to learn at the moment. So through webinar and also this self-paced training. And Aaron and myself spent quite a few hours over the last month or so, wasn't it, Aaron, actually updating some of these videos. And if you do come to this self-paced area, it's great if you just want to actually, learn in your own time without being, thinking you've got to attend at a certain particular time. So you can literally click on these little tiles, see what it is that you need to do, and then right at the end of it, you'll be able to sort of take your exam from within this portal. So for your course certification. At the moment, for the advanced certification, that's still through webinar. If I just scroll down a little bit, so we can see we've got the advanced certification webinar by webinar. And then further down, we've got a a list of other sort of webinars that are available for you. So there's opening balance webinars, there's the partial exemption. So because there are so many topics within QuickBooks, you can't cover them all in at these, certification webinars. You would just be doing it for days on end. So there are some additional options here. We've also got properties, if you need to deal with properties, or charities, if you want to learn how you might actually account for charities. And Aaron and myself help host the construction one. So the next one there, I think, is the 30th of November. So take a look if you haven't seen these already. And also so this is for accountants only, but don't forget, within the actual quickbooks.co.uk page, within the learn support area, you can get access to these webinars as well from there. So that's the one thing that I wanted to show you, to take you through those. One thing I didn't mention, Aaron, within our little agenda, was the ability to migrate from one software platform into another. And we were talking about this within our sort of trainer circle, weren't we, during the week, where, since the beginning of time, it seemed, well, not quite, but over the last few years anyway, there's always been a little team that if we want to do a data conversion, we can get in touch with someone. So do you want to sort of take, I'll stop sharing my screen, and do you want to sort of take us through what you've learned over the last few days?
Yeah, and just to say on that training though, while we've got it in the back of our mind, one of the things that we're quite excited about is the fact that we should be able to update them more regularly, shouldn't we now, Ash? Whereas before, they got outdated pretty quickly and we were unable to change them. So one of the things that we're hopefully going to be able to maintain is actually keeping them up to date and fresh, as opposed to what they were before. So I think that's really exciting, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely, and they're a lot more manageable in there now, and they're in nice little chunks for people to work through. And even if you have done the course certification, you might have done it a couple of years ago. Perhaps you did it when you thought you were going to start your bookkeeping practice. It might not have kicked off as you'd have hoped, and now you need a refresher on some of those sort of tools, especially with the new banking tool that's only just been released and been changed. Go back and take a look at just the banking section videos if you wanted to do that. Yeah,
definitely. And I think that's important, isn't it? That with the product changing so much lately, that you've got the opportunity to do that. So as Ash was saying, we've now lost that ability, or it's not that we've lost the ability, but the way in which we bring in opening balances and the way that we bring in migration of data has been kind of taken away from us, in terms of it's not internally used by QuickBooks anymore. They still offer a service, so if you're an accountant, you can still have an opportunity to have that service, but now they just pass it to a third party and they will do it. And we've definitely found in the past that sometimes when third parties get involved, there can be issues when doing it. It could be time delays, and it won't be as a smooth a situation as it has been before. So what I did want to do is kind of just reiterate and kind of prove or push back into kind of people's mind how, if you are looking to bring in your own, what options you have. Now, one of the great things about this is actually one of the webinars covered in the webinars that Ash has just gone through. So where you saw the opening balances part there, this is exactly kind of taken from what we would kind of expect there. But it's not just when you first start your business and first want to put your opening balance in, but this could be when you're migrating from one solution to the other. So we could use the opening balance webinar at that point. But really, it's just being aware of all these new features, because if we had this issue back when QuickBooks first started, we would be in a lot worse a position, because we wouldn't have the opportunities we have now. But remember how under the tools section, import data, we now have a whole raft of extra elements we can import in that we couldn't import back in the day. So actually, the fact that it's been taken away from us is a shame, and it's an issue, but at least we now have the tools to be able to get most of that data in quite quickly. And the ones that I would really urge people to kind of get their heads around exactly how it works is make sure you're comfortable with the customer and supplier and chart of accounts, because they're going to be critical in making sure that whatever you were used to on that old platform, whatever your client maybe was used to on that old platform, you can bring it in and can have familiarity. And one of the things about the import data in QuickBooks is that it gives you that chance to cleanse that data as well. So you can make sure that on behalf of your client, you're only bringing in data that's relevant and you're not bringing any out-of-date data. And for those customers supplying chart accounts, all you're really doing is making it familiar for you. You're not bringing in transactions at that point. And then remember, you have the opportunity now to bring in invoices and bills. And the key one really is your journal entries as well. So you're going to be able to bring those transactions in to be able to make it so at very least you can draw a line in the sand of your old solution and bring your opening balances in on a new solution and have that going in from one to the other. And that's going to be critical, I think, in terms of making it so you can easily bring over data from one solution to another and at least have those opening balances to be able to work from and have a nice clean cutoff point and bring it over to the new one. So bear in mind that you have those features in QuickBooks. That's going to be really useful. Also, cast your mind back to last time we spoke, and I was talking about there was that data option we had within Google Sheets. So if you want to have a quick look over at 2 weeks ago, there was the opportunity to refresh yourself there. But a third-party solution like that will also be really, really useful. And I think that's where you're going to have to go to if you're going to start looking at really extensive amounts of data. And what I also heard from, or when I was speaking to QuickBooks about this and about, migrating clients of my own and how to do it now, they do recommend the third parties as well. So Sassant's been one that's been around for ages, which is Excel importer and exporter. And with that, the idea is that you get the data into Excel format and then you basically migrate it over, or at least import it in. So I think we've got loads of options now. And really, you've just got to find out which is best. But also a quick Google, and there's still, what was it called? Move My Books are still one we've used in the past. There's still competitors or at least opportunities out there where you can pass it over to a third party, pay a fee, and the idea then is they will migrate that data for you. So yeah, it's different times, isn't it, Ash? But I don't think it's massively the end of the world if you kind of think about it and start planning it ahead. But it's just times are changing, aren't they?
Yeah, but and going back to the things like Move My Books, even if you have to, pay, and I don't know what the rates are now, but at one point it was sort of about £60 for every year's worth of data, and even if it is that, it is money well spent. I haven't needed to use Move My Books for a few years, especially after winding down my accounting practice. But when I did use them, I'm talking for about 2016, they were excellent. So I would highly recommend, I never had any issues when I think I moved about 3 different clients through Sage, Sage Desktop into QuickBooks Online, and it was spot on with those 3. So I can't really complain for 3 out of 3 with those. So sometimes having things done for free is not always as good as actually paying a couple of quid extra in the long run. Because if you have to spend 2 days unraveling something, what's 2 days of your time worth? That's how I would maybe look at that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think one of the things that I've certainly had to explain on a numerous of times to clients, and it's all going to be down to personal preference, but you've got to think about what's the need to bring that historical data. It is really great to have that historical data. So having each individual transaction, bring it over is sometimes really, really useful. But sometimes just think about what's your actual need for it. If you've still got access to that old platform, to do a final set of accounts or whatever the reason will be to have that data, then sometimes that's enough, isn't it, Ash? There's not always this massive need and massive rush to go out there and basically replicate what you had in the old system, bring it over to the new system.
Oh, I absolutely agree. And I've heard a couple of people say this before. Just because you can do something doesn't mean that you should. So just because you can try and bring through 20 years worth of data, should you really do that and clog up something when you might as well start from fresh? You know what all your customers owe you as at the end of that financial year. You know who you owe money to, at the end of the last financial year. Just bring in those amounts and start with a clean slate. And if you did want to have maybe a prior year comparison for your profit and loss, then maybe just import some figures as of the last financial year, in a like in a journal for just 1 month if you wanted to do that, and adjust it that way. So at least you have got that year-to-date comparison if that was important. But I can't imagine for many they'd be looking back at sort of the last sort of several years. It's unusual. And if they had that software still on the desktop that they could access periodically if they needed to, you're better to do that. I know I've helped businesses before where I put them to QuickBooks Online, but they still had their QuickBooks desktop file, which they might look at every now and again just to see what a customer bought from them sort of 6 years ago. But that's only just to look occasionally. The time we probably spend trying to bring all that stuff through is just not worth it.
Yeah, completely. And there's ways, most platforms out there give you an opportunity to export that data in one format or another as well, doesn't it? So it's not ideal, but you should be able to at least archive that data to some point, and then then that everything past a certain date, you've got to go to your archive, and you've got to find, you've really got to think about how worthwhile is that data to you and bringing that data in. So I do really kind of recommend just looking at it. And now with that opportunity to bring in invoices and everything else into QuickBooks, you may find that you can just quickly bring in that data that is relevant to you, that's needed. And I think the only other thing that I've always kind of or needed to kind of really push when it comes to data migration and the importance of it is just that date point. So just be aware that what date you choose to bring that data over is by far the most critical point. So try and make sure that if you are VAT registered, you do it on a VAT period end, and as long as you get that date right, you'll normally find that you're going to make your life easier when it comes to that migration. So that tends to be the most important thing, doesn't it, Ash?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Yeah, so it's just a bit of a public service announcement, really. If you are an accountant out there and you have been utilizing the data migration service, it's still available. It's not gone anywhere. It just seems to be limited compared to what it was in the past. It's not an internal solution or internal use anymore. So just be aware of it. And then, just think about it. And going forward, just maybe keep it in mind when it comes to moving massive amount of data over. So, Ash, what was the next on the agenda?
So was it my little tip of the day?
Yeah.
Using bundles. So what I'll do, I'll share my screen again.
Brilliant.
Share screen. There we go. Now, just before I go into the bundles, what I'm logged into here is it's actually a test file. So as a developer, I can log into this developer area. What I've got open, this is actually a US-based company. So there is a feature which is in beta within the US QuickBooks. And I thought I'd just mention this because usually within a few months we may see it. So I thought I'd just mention it just to keep looking out for it. So I keep looking out for it in our UK QuickBooks. I don't see it yet. I'm just going to go into our accounts and settings. When I come into my company settings and look at the sales area, I think this is where it was. I'm just going to remember. There we go. Products and services. There's this option in here in US QuickBooks files called price rules. And basically what this means is that if you turn on these price rules, come back to sales, what you're able to do then is say, well, for a particular customer, when I sell to them, it's going to be 10% less than what it normally is. And this could be really useful to, if you're in wholesale, retail, so you've got some particular large resale customers that you sell to, you're likely to be giving them better rates than people that you just sell smaller quantities to. So if this has been switched on, and I've actually turned it on within my sort of settings here, what that means then, if you've got a product or service So if I look at my computer, if I just come to choose to edit this, if I have got some products in place, if I scroll down, I can see that I've got price rules enabled. And just before we sort of started, I was able to just basically edit my price rules. I'll just see what happens if I click add new. So if I go add new, or actually I can just click on JC customers, because I must be able to edit that price rule. So within that price rule, wherever I sort of have JC customers, I'm decreasing by 10%. So if I actually click on that JC electronics, I'll click on products and services, there we go. So I've got the customer that's chosen, and I've got the products and services that have been affected. So for every time I sell a computer, which would normally be £100, the adjusted price to that particular customer is 90. So that could save a lot of time. If you do have to sell to those specific customers, but we don't have those features in the UK version. So what can we do if we want to do something similar at the moment? So you can work around this. I love a good workaround. So if I come into my QuickBooks file, so this is the one I popped it into. Just open this up. So if we don't have that feature, which we don't at the UK QuickBooks at present, then we can adapt what we have to get the same result. But bear with me while this opens. I'll just take a look in my products and services. Should be open anytime. So I'm a bit of a go slow. It usually is when we're sort of connected through this.
It doesn't like the stream, does it?
Yeah.
It does not like it.
So there we go. Any moment now. So if I go into my products and services, there's not many in this one. It's just an extra sample company that I use, so it should be fairly clean. So I've got a 22-inch monitor here that I've got, which I would normally sell at £70 each. What I've done is I've just added an additional service item for discount. So I'll just edit this so you can see how it's set up. So this service item for discounts, I've just called it discounts for monitor JC electronics. And so it's for discounts allowed is the description of it. And I've put in here -7, which is basically 10% again off the value of what I would normally sell it for, and it's being directed to my discounts given account within this QuickBooks file. So what I want to do basically is lump these two items together, my sale and my discount, into a bundle. So if I actually go to create a new bundle, so I'll choose a bundle here, and I'll just call it monitor with discount. Obviously call it whatever you'd like. So I put in here the monitor. So for every one of those that I sell, I want to actually attach one discount to it. So they both have the same quantity, one of each. I'm going to put in their description, monitor with discount as well. And let me just choose the save and close. So if I were to create a invoice, so actually sell that product using that bundle, customers have we got? There we go, JC Electrics. So if I sell to this customer and use that bundle, monitor with discount, so I've got one of each quantity. So in this top line is my bundle. Below that, I can see how the bundle's been made up. One monitor, one discounts allowed. Whatever I put in my quantity it's actually going to multiply the rate up. So I could put in there 3. So it's going to multiply the total sale, what's going against the discount, give me that total for all of those 3 items that I'm selling there. So if I just click save, I'll leave that on the screen for a second. So if I do look at that more and look at the way those transactions are being built up. So if I look at the accounts that have been credited with the sales, where the discounts are being debited to, you'll see all the different adjustments are being made. Let's get this open up and we should see it. Any moment now. There we go. So we can see that there is these are all the entries, because these are actually stock items as well. So I've got my stock movements between cost of sales and coming out of stock. I can see there I've got my net sales of 210, the 3 times the 70. Then I've got the 3 times the £7, giving me my discount. So my discount being given is being debited, and the VAT. So using that bundle, all of those entries are being made at the same time for me. So I thought I wanted to show you that. And I used to mention this, I'll just go to create another invoice, in fact. So I used to mention this when I used to do the advanced training in classrooms, when if I had a bit of spare time. And when we used to mention that we can use QuickBooks to help us with our charities. And if I were to say, have some donations in, then I can use that same option of actually having 3 different line items for a donation, maybe the gift aid that I'm going to put on top of that donation. But because the actual donor that's putting the donation in, they don't pay the gift aid, so I will then actually have a deduction off of that. So let me just explain or put this in. So I've got my donations, including gift aid. So that's been made up as a bundle. So the donation with the gift aid. So I have £1, 25 pence. If it's 25%, I'm not sure if that's still the correct rate for gift aid, but I'm just assuming it is at the moment. So I've got £1. So for every £1, 25 pence would get added onto my potential income for that charity. Because the donor doesn't actually pay the gift aid, that is being deducted. So let me just change that to no VAT. So if someone actually donates, let's say £300, then I just put 300 into the quantity. That's going to multiply all of these rates up. It's going to multiply the 1, the 0.25s. And these are all directed, these 3 lines are all directed to different chart of account categories. So if I were to save that, and to look at my more option for this particular transaction, we should see that we've got £300 will be credited to our donation expected. We'll have another, whatever 25% is, that's £75, added to my expected donations. So my gift aid that's coming in, and then when I get to claim that gift aid, that's going to sit in my balance sheet, £75, until HMRC actually pay that gift aid back to us when it's due. So I thought I'd just point that little sort of tip out there. So bundles can be extremely useful. Hopefully we'll get that additional feature for the pricing at some point. But if you don't have it, at least you've got a way of fixing your prices. So how about that one then, Aaron?
Yeah, I love that one. I think bundles are one of those where people just aren't aware of it, are they? Especially that whole bit where when you actually send the invoice out, you can choose to either show the breakdown of the bundle or not breakdown of the bundle. So I think it's one of those where once you've kind of start to use it, you get a few kind of light bulb moments kind of start picking in and going, actually, that could be really, really useful, because we use it for the partial exemption, not partial, the margin scheme. We use it for all sorts of different bits that you can start playing around with, and it's just that initial kind of, oh, okay, that's what it's designed for. Because the design for it was always like, and I think Roz, one of our friends, it's her example. It was always like, if there's a hamper, for example, and you've got loads of different items that go with it, then you just sell one hamper and it will affect all of your different stock items and bring them. Like you've just shown there, 2 brilliant examples of where you can really start pushing the bundles further to start making some really clever ways of pushing them in. I love bundles, I do.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely, Aaron. And what some might sometimes forget is that when you use that bundle, because it's made up of a stock item, it's still going to affect your quantity. So I started off with sort of 10 items there, but I sold them through the bundle. So now I've only got 3 left. So it's still going to keep your stock in place as it should. So,
Great.
Okay.
Brilliant. I know, that's a really good tip, that one. I'm looking forward for the next one now. Your pressure's getting on now. You're going to have to keep bringing up these bars of tips after tips after tips.
I've still got a few that I can that I can bring out. So I'll have to start writing them down now before I forget, and just not leave it for a couple of days before.
Brilliant. So next on the agenda is the Q&A session, isn't it? But before we do that, can I just bring in one extra bit to the agenda? And it's just being aware of it, really. We did a really great video on that on our channel this week, and it's been one that's been quite a nice little talking point, and that was Xero versus QuickBooks. So finally got the opportunity to get my gloves off and have a little fight, and it was me and hopefully a person who's going to be joining the show soon for a guest appearance, Rachel from Accountant She, and we did this whole battle between Xero versus QuickBooks. So I really do highly recommend people kind of check that one out. There's a bit of a thing about what we kind of learned between that, though, and it's an interesting one. I've never really had any issues myself. I just wondered what your opinion was. But when we look at the banking section, we were trying to rank it as, when you look at the banking section, who's got the better approach and everything else. I know you've done quite a bit of work with Xero now, but her point to it was that how QuickBooks has the ability where you can actually get the banking section wrong, as opposed to Xero when you can't get the banking section wrong. And then there was this whole kind of argument between reconciliation versus non-reconciliation and which one's got the better approach. But just from your point of view, Ash, now you've seen kind of both ends of it and you've had to work with both, and which is your kind of preferred method?
Well, being completely honest, I've not looked at detail of sort of reconciling a Xero file.
Because you can't.
Because you can't, yeah. I can't believe that the reconciliation feature is not there as a standard tool. Whereas since the dawn of time, again, I don't know why that has just come into my head, but since I've ever worked with different software tools, and I've worked with a few different accounting software packages, solicitor-specific software compliant packages where I had to do a bank reconciliation, Sage, of course, where I had to do a bank reconciliation, QuickBooks Desktop, where I had to do a bank reconciliation, QuickBooks Online, where I had to do a bank reconciliation, yet Xero, I don't need to do a bank reconciliation because I can just be happy that it is right with the bank. Sorry, I don't agree with that methodology. You've got to reconcile it. You've got, because as we know, things become disconnected.
Exactly.
And how can you then try to work back on when did it become disconnected? What data's missing in between? I want to get a Xero person in here to actually
I was unprepared, if you like, in terms of how to defend it properly, in terms of the way that it was. But yeah, it was just one of those where my initial reaction was, I'm just going to bring up the reconciliation point and move on, and we'll just, But then their counterpoint was, yeah, but you can then have an unbalanced unbalanced account within QuickBooks, and they are right, because we've seen it many a times when people have posted the account incorrectly, and I'm thinking, but surely in Xero that's the same problem, the same issue. It's just you're never aware of it, are you?
Well, of course, you can have an unbalanced account, but that's the whole process of reconciling it. Because if you at your end of your year, you'll be checking these reconciliations to make sure that they agree. And if they don't, I mean, how can they be fully sure everything is as it needs to be? Yeah, I'll take a lot of convincing, I'm afraid.
Yeah. and one of the other things that brought up as a reason why Xero is so good is you get a free coffee machine now if you buy Xero. So, take that as you will. That's
I don't drink coffee. I only drink tea.
So I just thought that was kind of scraping the barrel there. If that's, but we'll save that for another chat when we bring her on the show later down the line. Okay, then. So the next bit is we're going to go into the Q&A session. So if you do have any questions, or if you're having any issues whatsoever in QuickBooks, then please do put your questions in now. We're actually going to have we've only got a couple of minutes left here, so if you do have some questions, we'll make sure we answer them accordingly. Just like Leanne has here. So Leanne asked the following question. Hi, Leanne. Hope you're doing okay. And her question is, I'm sorting out a few stragglers in QuickBooks. I spent around £400 in cupboards, shelving to store my stock. Can you tell me what category it should go in, please? Great question there, Leanne. Basically, it's fixed assets. I think we've got an expert on fixed assets in the room, actually, Ash. So we'll pass that one over to you.
I guess, it could be a fixed asset. I mean, £400 for some, and if they're sort of leftovers, cupboards and shelving, if you're not actually going to use them, then I suppose you've got a few different options here. So if you initially purchased them, and you, depending on where you coded them originally, so you might have coded them to fixed asset, furniture and equipment, then if you're not going to do it, well, if you're just going to hold on to them, just leave them there, and you'll start depreciating them. But if they're actually in part of your stock, then if you are sort of monitoring stock and you're having sort of opening stock, purchases, and then closing stock. So if you ever use stock, not necessarily tracking stock, using stock tracking software, but if you value stock at the end of your financial year. So when I used to help a business that didn't really use stock tracking, but we valued up the stock. So, and this was every month. So we would value what is the stock at the end of the month, and then I'll end up with an opening stock balance, which would then become the closing stock balance. They keep rolling forward each month. So I'd look at the end. So I'd look at the end of my financial month, and I'd say, okay, my closing stock value could be £400. So I've got £400 worth of leftover stock. So what I can do is I could do a double entry for that, which could credit essentially my cost of sales. So, and then put a debit into stock if I'm holding it for stock that I'm going to sell later. So that's one thing you could do if it's something you're holding on to. So originally coded to purchases, as an example, you could then create an entry, credit purchases 400, and debit your stock, your asset account 400, and it's just sitting there, as an asset, in your as a stock. So you could use it for that. Or if it is a fixed asset, then it's obviously going to go onto your fixed assets. But it sounds to me that perhaps it could have been some materials that you bought, perhaps maybe to sell even. So you've got a couple of options.
Yeah. I think Leanne's saying with £400 in cupboards / shelving to store my stock. I think she means the actual buying of the assets themselves. My fault.
Oh yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I didn't read it properly, Aaron. But
I know it's my fault.
Exactly. Yeah. So it is a fit. Yeah. It could. Well, it depends. And again, it depends on your policies. Because some people don't bother actually to capitalise anything if it's less than 500 quid. Some businesses might not even capitalise anything if it's less than 1,000. So you might just want to code it to expensed equipment.
Yeah, or repairs and renewals could be another one to put it to.
Yeah, repairs and renewals. So entirely up to you.
I think as default, it's just equipment, isn't it, that you get as your fixed asset? They just call it equipment, don't they, in QuickBooks as the default QuickBooks one, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. So if you want, I mean, your choice in this one, you're either going to put it to equipment as a fixed asset. That way you can then just deal as a fixed asset. It's probably too little to keep as your one, but it's completely up to you on if that's in your policy or not. Or repairs and renewals or somewhere like that will be another good shout, to be fair. Or create a new account. You can always create a new profit and loss account called shelving. There's nothing wrong with that. Again, this is your bookkeeping, so feel free to create ones if it makes sense to you. But yeah, that's what we would do. Equipment or repairs and renewals. I think that answers it quite nicely.
I just see Leanne's just come back. Thought it had to be a certain amount to be put in fixed assets. It all depends really on what you want to do within your own sort of policies. Now, and it will vary. I mean, if you're quite a small business, £400 could be quite a bit of money to you, and you think, well, actually, I will capitalise it because it makes no difference on your tax because you can claim it all back through your first year allowance, the whole thing, £400. But the advantage of actually putting it on your balance sheet as a fixed asset just means that your profit's going to look a little bit better. If you're going to depreciate it, say over 10 years, then it's only going to be £40 cost in your P&L instead of 400.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly. So, and it's your business at the end of the day. You're the one who's going to be looking at it more than anyone. So, choose what's right for you in terms of your reporting. Really, that's brilliant. No, I think we've answered that quite sufficiently there for Leanne. And yeah, just have a look through. I'm pretty sure repairs and renewals is always there. So yeah, you should be able to find that. Or there's repairs and maintenance, isn't it, in QuickBooks terminology? And that sounds more feasible of what they call it as a standard, don't they? But if not, then there's an opportunity to create one, isn't there, when go from there.
Cool,
brilliant. Okay, so with that then, Ash, when we next on? Have you? I think I'm putting you on the spot here again.
Well, I thought it was going to be Tuesday the 1st of December, but did you say perhaps we can't do that day?
I think we've agreed the Thursday for some reason. I've got it in my diary that we're on that Thursday, so we might have to reconvene. I've got Thursday the 26th, so I don't know. There might have been a reason for that. I don't know. Oh, in fact, there is, because we got a call on that Tuesday. So yeah, it's definitely Thursday the 26th. If you can make it.
Okay. Perhaps we need to sort of. I meant to put this in right at the beginning because that's 3 weeks today, isn't it?
Is it?
I think, as opposed to 2, or only 1 week. That's like a week next. That's next week.
Oh, is it next week? Is it? Yeah. So yeah, something's gone wrong here. So we'll figure this one out. We'll put a post up on the Facebook group.
Yeah. Okay. Must be more organised.
You can see we're episode number 11 and we're already fine. Brilliant. Okay, so either way though, what's next? What should we be telling them when it comes to next on the agenda?
So next, I'm not quite sure what we're going to talk through next in the next show. I'm going to think of a brand new tip of the week to take us through. But the thing will be that it'll be the same time, which will be 4 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time, which could equate to 10 a.m. US Central Time. So, Aaron, I think I'll leave that for you to say goodbye.
Thanks, Ash. Yeah, with that then, it's a goodbye from me, goodbye from Ash, and thank you. Also, do do remember that we are going to be putting on the Facebook group as well. If you're not a member, do get yourself a member of the Facebook group, because one thing we are thinking about is what times and everything else this works for a thing. We are thinking about putting out a survey of some description to try and find out exactly what the best time is to get these live shows over to you. So keep an eye out from that one. So with me, then, it's a goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me.
And we'll see you on the next one. Cheers, everyone.
Bye.